I've thought since I launched this, you would be one of the best guests to have here because I know you in so many different ways. You know me in so many different ways. But instead of you grilling me, today I get to grill you for a little bit.
So Go for it.
So for those of you that don't know, Steve is an elite business coach focusing on real estate in LA for many years, but he had a whole life before that, which we're going to get into. We think he may be the only Jewish linebacker in the history of the National Football League. If anyone else can fact check that, let me know and tell me it's fake news, but I think it's real. So Steve, let's get back to the beginning. Tell me where you grew up, how you grew up. Were you playing sports growing up, different sports, or was it always football? And, what kind of led you to focusing on football and high school football, and then walk us through high school career, college career, and then we can get to the NFL after that.
Well, I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia, and got into sports right from the beginning. Was a Eagles fan, Phillies fan, Sixers fan, and sports was absolutely my focus growing up. My mom was always trying to get me to do other things, and I just had a one-track mind. So I did play. I played football, played baseball, played basketball. However, early on, it was like 7th grade in baseball, threw my arm out. So that kind of ended my baseball career. And I wasn't that great in basketball and always loved football. And so, that became the focus, and had a good high school football career, was captain, and got some awards and things like that, and was fortunate enough to get one scholarship offer. One offer to the College of William and Mary. So that's where I ended up, in Williamsburg, Virginia.
So was it Notre Dame, Alabama, USC?
No, they were not knocking on my door. So
did you have siblings, and did they play sports with you, or?
I have a younger brother and a younger sister. No, they were not into sports.
Okay. So what positions did you play in high school? A little everything, or?
In high school, I was a tight end and a linebacker.
Okay. And were you the star of the team? Were you the standout player at that point? Was it clear that you were another level, or no? Were you just a good player in the mix? I mean, you got a scholarship.
I would say I was above average.
You had to be above average. You got a scholarship.
Yeah. I was very focused, very determined. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So you went to William Mary. William Mary, is that in Pennsylvania too?
No, William Mary's in Williamsburg, Virginia. Second oldest college in the country. Harvard was 1 and William and Mary was 2. 1693.
I think they recruited me for baseball, and I didn't know where it was. I was like, who, William and who? But that's a whole nother story.
Same thing.
You didn't know where I'm going. So you went there. You showed up. I mean, it's a big jump, high school to college. What was that transition like for you as an athlete, going to that level of college football? It's college football. It's a different thing.
Thinking back, I don't know. It wasn't a difficult transition from high school to college. It was more just an extension of, competition got a little better and worked harder to meet that level of competition.
Okay. And you were playing linebacker now once you were in college?
Linebacker, absolutely.
And how long did it take you to get into the lineup? Were you playing right away as a freshman, or did it wait till your last year? I'm kind of trying to get a gauge on, were you dominating at this small school and it was clear that this guy's a monster and is going to the next level, or were you,
it was interesting. We had good linebackers. In fact, one of the guys on the team, Jim Ryan, who was a year ahead of me, he actually made it with the Broncos and played 9 or 10 years with the Broncos. And it was actually by the time playing the pros was always my dream growing up, from the beginning. By the time I got to college, that dream had begun to fade tremendously. I was only 6'1". I was like 185 pounds when I, got to William and Mary.
It's not big for a linebacker.
Yeah, not big at all. And basically was thinking I wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough wasn't good enough. However, in my junior year, Jim Ryan's senior year, after that, he ended up signing a free agent contract with the Broncos. And so when that happened, because we were very similar in terms of size, I had put on a little more weight by then, and we had similar careers. And so when
So you're like, oh,
when the Broncos signed him, then I said, okay, maybe
it's not so far away.
I got a chance.
And so by this time you were a junior? Or?
Yeah, that was when I was a junior. So my senior year, I had a very good junior year. My senior year was not as good. I had a couple injuries that I was dealing with. And however, I did engage an agent, and I was hoping that I might get drafted. There was a little interest.
Yeah.
Not a lot. And back then, the draft was 3 or 4 days. It was a lot more rounds, a lot more people, very different. Day 1 went by, no calls. Day 2, no calls. Day 3, no calls. And I didn't get drafted.
Yeah.
And fortunately, though, one of the equipment managers, her dad was an assistant coach with the Dolphins. And so there was some connection.
Okay.
Somebody knew me. And anyway, I can remember it was the day after the draft, I got a call in the morning from the Dolphins, and they said, we want you to come down to training camp. I said, great. And I had really long hair at the time.
Nice. This is like late 80? You started in 80.
No, this was
79?
1976.
Oh, yeah.
And this was 19.
Your rookie year was 80.
1976, yeah. And so I had a 1968 Dodge van.
Awesome.
Jumped in that van, went right to get a haircut, got all my hair cut off, flew down to Miami, and I was recovering. I'd had shoulder surgery. Oof. And I had broken my wrist, and so my arm was still in a cast. And so I fly down to Miami, and I remember driving into training camp, and right when I was coming in, Don Shula happened to be coming off the practice field, and no shirt. He was a little overweight, and I remember meeting him walking in, and this was like meeting a god.
It was. We're meeting a god. Yeah.
And so you go through it. It's called mini camp, and they bring in right after the draft. They bring in all the draft choices, and then they sign free agents, and everyone comes in for a 3 or 4 day mini camp. And I couldn't do a whole lot because
you have a cast,
shoulder surgery, arm in a cast. And so we get to the end of mini camp, the end of the 3 days. Now I don't have a contract yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm about to leave the facility. I'll never forget this. The director of player personnel, Bill Davis, calls me into his office and puts a contract in front of me. And it was a 3-year contract. You're going to love this. Signing bonus, $500. First year, $25,000. Second year, $30,000. And then an option for a 15% increase in the third year of that contract.
Just like today.
Just like today, right?
Yeah, just like
missing 3 zeros.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But you got a contract. You were hurt at training camp.
So I have an agent at this time, and I said, well, I'd really like you to talk to my agent about this contract.
Negotiate this deal.
And he goes, son, if you don't sign this contract, I'm sure we can find someone who will. Signed the contract. Got my $500.
That was it.
That was it.
So how did you get signed if you didn't? If you were hurt, how did you? What are the odds of that?
Yeah. Anyway, so So, then I, go back up to Pennsylvania, spend the rest of the summer working out, and then back to Miami. And again, back then things were very different. Training camp was 8 weeks long. You practice twice a day. You're in pads,
Full pad.
twice a day, full gear, the whole thing. And remember, it's Miami, July, August.
It's 110 degrees,
not
humid.
exactly cool. So, and when back then they would bring in 90 people to training camp, and then the final roster would be 45. So they're cutting from 90 to 45, and then a lot of the guys they're bringing back. So it's not like there's 45
Correct.
open positions. You're competing. Maybe there were 10 openings on the team, and I'm a free agent, and nobody knows who I am, and nobody really cares. I'm just a body for training camp. And so I got in there, and it was very challenging because literally in 2 practices a day, I might get in for a total of 4 plays, period.
No reps.
No reps, no anything. And however, when the when the preseason started, guys were getting hurt, and so I would play a lot in the games.
Got it.
And in practice, I was an outside linebacker. When we played, though, I played inside linebacker. So a lot of it was mental, and I played really well. I was kicking butt, and so you go through this whole experience, and it's a challenging experience. I can remember halfway through or whatever, I was getting really frustrated, not being able to practice, and there was a guy on the other side on offense, Ronnie Lee, and he was a second-year guy from Texas. He was a tight end, and he was a big guy. He was probably 6'4", 6'5", 270 pounds.
How big were you now at this point?
And I'm 6'1", and now I'm about maybe 215. And so Ronnie liked to take chip shots at the rookie linebackers any chance he got. And one day he happened to take a shot at me, and that was the kind of thing that threw me over the edge, and I just went ballistic. And so we go at it, the two of us. Now he's got 50, 60 pounds on me and a few inches, and yet 5 guys are having to hold me back, and no one's holding him. And I think that got the coach's attention a little bit. And so you go through this process, and the first cut, they go from 90. I think it was a big cut. They cut down to 60. I made it through that first cut. The next cut, 60 to 45. I forget. I mean, 60 to 55. I forget the numbers exactly. I made it through the second cut. Made it through the third cut. Now it's the last preseason game. We're playing the New Orleans Saints down in the Superdome, and it's Archie Manning, not Peyton Manning, not Eli Manning. He was the quarterback.
Yeah.
And I had a quarterback sack in that game,
Nice.
and then I had a big hit on special teams, and I'm thinking maybe
You have a shot.
I got a shot. It's the last cut. They go from 50 to 45.
So you were right there.
I'm right there. I'm counting up. They usually kept 8 linebackers. And the week before, they had cut a number 2 draft choice from the year before.
Wow.
And I'm thinking I'm going to be number 8.
Lucky 8.
So we play the game. We come back to Miami. You get a day off, and then Monday you walk in the training camp, and there's a guy there called the Turk. And the Turk is the guy who tells you if you're cut or not. And the way they tell you if you're cut is they say, you need to bring your playbook to the office.
Take your playbook.
So obviously I'm on pins and needles. I go over there and I see the Turk, and he says, bring your playbook.
You're like, oh, fuck. Here we go.
And I end up being the last guy cut.
Oh,
and it's devastating. It's literally, to get that close to that dream and go through this entire process,
soul crushing, heartbreaking.
And so I go in and
is Shula sitting like this saying sorry?
Right where now.
So what does Shula tell you? Do you remember
and he goes, you did a great job. And I actually want you to stick around for a day. And I said, okay, I'll stick around for a day. However, I was talking to my agent, and he said the Giants were interested in me. Total nonsense. Yeah. And anyway, so what happened? So they took one of the offensive players who was hurt. They put him on injured reserve, and that opened up a roster spot. Anyway, let me backtrack for a second. So anyway, the day I got cut, I go back to my room. Now,
are you in tears? I mean, devastation.
Absolute devastation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We training camp was at this place called St. Thomas University, which was a downgrade from Motel 6.
Okay.
All right, we're staying in these crummy dorm rooms, and I go back to my dorm room, and I shut the blinds, and I spend the night in darkness, hearing the other guys that have made the team.
Celebrating.
They're out partying, and I'm in my room. I'm having my own pity party.
Yeah, of course.
What I'm having.
Yeah.
Anyway, next day comes, the roster spot opens up. 1 o'clock, I get a knock on my door, and I'm back on the team.
You're like, wow. Mind blowing.
However, in 24 hours, all my confidence had gone out the window, and now I don't want to get cut again. And one of the things that people don't realize when you play professional sports, at least when I was playing, there was no such thing as a guaranteed contract, and you could get cut any day of the week, and guys did get cut. Guys, every week, 1 or 2 guys are getting cut, 1 or 2 guys are coming in, people are getting injured. And so your job is literally on the line all the time. Oof. So I didn't want to get cut again because that didn't feel good.
No.
So for the first 5 weeks of the season, I was playing not to make a mistake. And so when you're playing not to make a mistake, you're not doing anything.
No, you're tight. You're tight. You're in your own head. You're not your best.
So it's week 6. We're playing the New York Jets, and I'm walking out to the practice field, and Coach Shula is ahead of me, and he turns around, looks me square in the eye, and he says, son, you're not doing what we put you on this team to do. Turned around and walked away. And, basically what he was telling me is I was going to get cut again. And this was a defining, one of the defining moments in my life. I had to make a decision, and I remember this clearly. And I stopped and I said to myself, okay, I'm going to give my best effort going forward. And if my best effort is good enough, great. And if my best effort is not good enough, well, so be it. I'm not going to sit here and worry about getting cut anymore. And that's where I truly learned not to be attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
And I let it go, and I ended up playing a total of 4 years. Got to play in a Super Bowl, Super Bowl XVII, was one of the captains. That was a funny story.
Against, was that Riggins? Who was
John Riggins?
Redskins.
Yep.
Did you have to tackle Riggins?
44 yards. Yeah, we were.
Oh, he was a beast.
He was a beast. He was a
It's
throwback.
like trying to get in front of a car.
He was a tough guy, no doubt about it. And so, growing up watching the Super Bowl, and they go out for the coin flip, and I always had it in my head that you know, if you're one of the captains, you get a coin. and so I ended up being one of the captains for that game.
You were at the 50-yard line.
I'm out on the 50-yard line before the game. Yeah, it was cool.
So who was out? Do you remember who were the captains? Who were you with? Who was the
on
quarterback?
My team,
Greasy?
Bob Kuchenberger, who recently just passed away. I think maybe Don McNeil, who was a cornerback. I forget. On the team, we had an offensive guy, defense.
Who was the quarterback? Was it Greasy at that point? Bob Greasy or someone else?
My first year I played, Greasy was quarterback. Then I played with David Woodley from LSU. He was the quarterback for that game. And then my last year was Dan Marino's first year.
So it was right
in the league. Yeah. So we ended up we were actually ahead in the game going into the fourth quarter, and then there was a 4th and 1 play, and Riggins went off tackle for 40+ yards, and they ended up winning the game.
So you were in a Super Bowl game. Here you go, from Philadelphia all the way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that was actually the last game I ever played in. The following year, we were in a scrimmage against the Saints, and I had a bad premonition going into the scrimmage. The year before, when we scrimmaged, I had hurt my knee and had to miss a few weeks of practice. And so I was worried about that going into this scrimmage. And we do the scrimmage, I go through my plays, and I'm fine. And so I come off the field feeling, okay, I made it. Another guy gets hurt, I have to go back in.
Oh, no.
And boom, it was a goal line play. I was diving over the top. The fullback hit me in my knee with his helmet, and I flipped over. My leg whiplash and tore 2 ligaments and 2 cartilage and a ligament, ACL.
Yeah.
And
the old ACL.
Laying on the field, doctor comes out, pulls the knee, and says, "That's it for the year."
Yeah.
And that was actually it for my career.
That was it forever.
Yeah. I tried rehabbing back. So the following year, go to training camp. You have to take a physical. I flunked my physical. However, coaches called up the doctors. Things were a little different then. He passed his physical. And so I get on. I'll never forget this. I knew my leg was bad, but however, that first practice,
you went out.
We went out, and the very first drill they used to do in training camp all the time was a drill called Oklahoma drill.
Is that when you pop up?
You go one-on-one against a lineman, and then there's a running back, and you have the dummies. You got to stay in between the dummies. In the lane. And you got to shed the block, get off, make the tackle. And I remember looking at my position coach like, "You're going to make me do this?" And it wasn't his call. And I lined up, got my butt kicked, and came back around, and it was time for me to do it again. And he comes to me and says, "All right, you don't have to go through it." Screw that! I've already been through it once. Let's go again. Anyway, I practiced for about 2 weeks. And then finally I was dragging my knee around. I went in, I went to Coach Shula and said, I can't do this. I'm going to tear my knee up again. And that was the end of my career.
Well, that was a hell of a career.
Yeah.
Hell of a career. Well, it's also ACL and reconstruction surgeries were very different then.
Yeah, well, you went in a cast for 8 weeks, and it was a whole different process.
I did mine, same thing. Ended my football career with ACL, and that's why I went to baseball. Well, that's an unreal story. I've never heard that start to finish.
Yeah.
One thing that, a lot of things stand out, but one thing that really stands out is it sounds like you made a mental adjustment, or you got tuned into the mental side and the psychology of playing sports in terms of getting your head straight, in terms of playing in the zone rather than being self-conscious. Find that very interesting, because now let's jump forward into your business career. I know a lot of what you preach is you have to have the mental side. You have to spend time preparing mentally, emotionally for business, so how much of that was stuff that you took from your sports career versus just stuff you've picked up along the way? And I'd also love to hear, give us the quick summary, the post-career to getting the transition to getting into coaching real estate agents and what you're doing now?
Well, so after I tore my knee up, I went back. And the other thing I didn't bring up, when I played back then, we had jobs in the off season. We actually went to work.
Got it.
One year I worked selling memberships at a racquetball club. The other years, one of the reporters happened to work in an advertising agency. So he got me an internship, and I'd work in the advertising agency in the off season. So that was a little different than today's athlete. So I went back on an MBA from the University of Miami. They had this great program. If you were a business undergraduate, you could get an MBA in 9 months. So I said, sign me up for that. And I got my MBA in 9 months. And they had one of those career days that they have. Mm-hmm. And this guy came in from Goldman Sachs, this young guy, and he was talking about investment banking. I had no idea what investment banking was. And I said, whatever he's doing, I want to do that.
Sounds good. Big money.
I made it through one round of interviews with Goldman Sachs, and that was the end of that. However, I ended up getting hired by Citibank, North American Investment Bank, and went up to New York, went through a 6-month training program in New York, came back down to Miami. Citibank had an office in Miami, worked there for about a year, and then that office closed, went back up to New York to interview, and ended up getting a job at Salomon Brothers, which at the time was one of the premier big Wall Street firms. And that was a huge opportunity, and went up through the interview process and ended up working on the government desk, right in the epicenter of what was going on, and did that for about 5 years, and then ended back in Florida. And then I decided to just make a complete change, moved out to California in 1991 and got into residential real estate.
Right.
And partnered up with someone who was in the business. And in our first year, we sold 53 homes. And in my second year, was on track to sell 100 homes. And I was going to some real estate seminars. And I went to Mike Ferry and with the idea of creating a coaching program for real estate agents. And at the time, coaching in real estate did not exist. Yeah. And so I was actually the guy who invented real estate coaching, and joined Mike in 1993. And that's when we launched coaching. And I've been coaching full-time since. In 2007, with a couple other partners, opened a real estate company, Tellus Properties, did that for 5 years, and kept my coaching practice during that period of time. And after I left Tellus, just continued on with my coaching practice. Yeah. So been coaching for over 25 years. A lot of what I do is based on my football experience. Don Shula is the winningest coach in NFL history. Yeah. The guy demanded perfection 100% of the time. And what I loved about playing for him is you knew why you were there every single day. And you were there for one reason and one reason only, and that is to win a Super Bowl. And that was his goal 365 days a year. That was the goal of the team, 365 days a year. And so a lot of the things I went through from that experience, I've carried forward into my practice. One of the things that you do, what you learn in football, is it's a pressure-packed situation. And you have to learn how to play under pressure, because it's there all the time. Yeah. And you have to elevate your game to that situation. And so that's where the mental part comes in. a lot of guys have the physical ability to compete in the pros.
Right.
And when you get to the pros, everyone's got physical ability.
Yeah.
You know, there are some guys who have over the top physical ability. However, for the most part, it's mindset. And that's what enabled me to even play. I wasn't big enough.
Right.
I wasn't fast enough. I had lousy hands. But however, mentally, I didn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I stuck my head in that playbook, and I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. So mindset and the mental game and preparation elevated you far beyond your tools. Your tools may not have been what a scout would say, hey, this is a no-brainer linebacker in the NFL, but your mindset, work ethic, all that combined was able to elevate you, which is clearly a lot of what you preach every day when you're talking to us about business. There's so many similarities. I always feel like a lot of the parallels in work ethic and things that I do where the blueprint came from my sports careers. And for sure, I see that through you, and which is one of the things that I always appreciate and enjoy, because a lot of the stuff you've telling me are things that I kind of grew up on and things that molded me. And I just think that the mental side of everything, whether it's business or anything else, it's so important. So rewind a little bit. Who were you partners with in real estate? Who were you working with?
When I was selling real estate?
When you started selling real estate, when you first got in.
Her name was Cynthia Freeman.
Cynthia Freeman.
We worked in Fullerton.
You were in Fullerton.
California, yeah.
So you did so much business. Why would you think, okay, I'll do something else? If you're doing 50 deals, 100 deals, you were at the top of the game. What most people wouldn't shift. They'd be like, oh, I'm dominating.
I liked figuring out how to do it. Like when I went to the seminars I was going to, I would study what the top agents were doing. In fact, what got me going in real estate is I listened to an interview with two top agents, Kim and Daryl Rouse. They were in Long Beach, California. They were in their second year of real estate, and I listened to what they were doing. They were selling 100 homes in their second year. And I listened to that and immediately got what the process was. Contacts equal leads, leads equal appointments, appointments equal listings and buyers, listings and buyers equal sales. It was a progression. And so I was always tuning into the formula of how to make things work. Just like when you play football, you have a playbook. Mm-hmm. And so I was very interested in creating what would be the playbook for success in real estate. And I think I tapped into that right from the beginning. And that's still the playbook that I work from. I've got more tools and experience in that playbook now. But at the core of it, it's still the same fundamentals.
Basic fundamentals. You refine and tweak just like a game plan would be refined and tweaked.
Exactly.
So after all these years, and you coach some of the lions and legends of our business, what do you see? I'm sure it's a tough question, but what are some of the threads and common themes you're seeing with people that reach the heights of this business? And do you think that similar traits that are the same traits that are people that have athletes reaching certain heights? Are there similarities? And I would like you to speak and get your take on that. What are the common threads of the most successful business agents that you've coached or that you've known?
If I look at the top agents, the characteristic that stands out most is they work their tail off. Nobody's coasting. They're smart people, and they're big thinkers. The ones who succeed think bigger than everyone else, and then they back it up with work. And then I've learned many lessons. However, the one I always share, if I look back over 25 plus years of coaching, the one thing that stands out the most, if you want to grow, you have to let go. And it's the agents who can let go. Like when you start out as a real estate agent, you do everything yourself from A to Z. And that's how you learn the business. Right. And that's how you begin to generate business. However, once you start generating business, you can't do everything that you did in the beginning. And the more and more you can let go, the more and more your business grows. And that by far is the thing that I see. Those agents who can let go, and we're talking about being able to delegate administrative things to other people. Those are the people who and can continue to think big. Those are the ones who grow their business.
That's pretty clear, it seems like. So any advice you'd like to give up and coming agents or agents in general, if they say, hey, what are some basic advice for someone who's seen it all, done it all, what are a couple things you would tell them to do?
Real estate is not rocket science. It is a very simple business. And for a long time, for over 5 years, I used to teach a class to all the new people coming into Caldwell Banker. And it was amazing to me how many people got into this business and never thought about what they were going to do to generate business. They just said, wow, I like houses, or I like people, and I want to make a 6-figure income, and I don't want to have a boss, and I want to have freedom and flexibility. Real estate, it's perfect. And, I hardly anyone ever walked into this business with a plan. When I started out, I knocked on 200 doors a day. 200 doors a day.
That's a lot of doors.
And I called expired listings every day. I spent 4 to 5 hours a day prospecting. I got right up front that the key to selling houses is talking to people.
Yeah.
And you're going to sell more homes, you got to talk to more people. So if you're a new agent wanting to get in this business, you've got to prospect. That is job one. Yeah. And if you're not willing to knock on doors or knock on heads or talk to the people you know or become part of organizations, get yourself in front of people.
Yeah. Any which way you can.
Any which way, because the market is only getting more and more competitive.
Certainly.
And so you've got to be willing to prospect. And if I was getting in the business now, I'd probably look for a top team to join so that you can... The challenge in real estate, if you're not around business, it's hard to figure out how to do business. And so you've got to get yourself around business as quickly as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a key for me. I think in the beginning, I had David Offer to look up to, and it was like, whoa, that's what you do? And I felt like, and I started hitting the ground running, doing deals, but it always felt like there was so many levels ahead because I was looking at David Offer and Larry Young and all these guys. I guess there's always looking at another level, but being around people that work hard and do business in the beginning of my career was fantastic. Being on a team would have probably accelerated me, but I was on my own. I probably would have gotten to a level faster. But yeah, I think that's being on a team is what I would suggest someone, because there's so much to learn and it's so hard. Even if you find a lead, to close a lead when you're new, it's just so difficult. But that's really interesting. Anything else you feel like you want to share? Anything you need to promote? You have any events coming up that you're speaking on? The open mic for you. Anything? Any words of wisdom for us? Real estate.
All I would say is the goal every day is to keep getting better, and that's something that I think about every day, always looking for. And it's not that it's a new idea. It's not about having new ideas. You don't need new ideas. I just encourage people, getting back to what we talked about earlier, mindset. It's so critical. Keeping your head in the right place. Meditation. If you haven't gotten into the practice of meditation, that's something that I would recommend to everyone. Taking that time every day just to detach from the external world, let go inside, and really tap into who you are on a higher level of awareness and consciousness.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Was meditation something you have done your whole life through athletics, or is it a newer thing that you've gotten into? Obviously, it's been around a while, but
It's been around,
but it's become so mainstream.
I wondered what it was, and maybe meditated a time or two here or there.
But never serious about it.
It's probably within the last 2 to 3 years. I got turned onto an app called Headspace.
Yep.
Started there and have since graduated. And it's just something that I really think is extremely helpful for anyone.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, look, I know you have to rush. You probably have 10 other clients you need to see, but thank you for coming and sharing that story. I've waited a long time to hear these football stories.
Well,
You're always
I hope it was entertaining.
It was. You're always grilling me about making more contacts and thinking bigger, but now I get to grill you about the first Jewish and only Jewish NFL linebacker, Super Bowl captain, Steve Shull. Forget this real estate stuff. We got to promote your football stuff, Steve. All right, thanks, man. I really appreciate you coming, and we'll continue this offline.
All right. Thank you very much for having me, Danny.
Cause I did it my way, nothing y'all can say. In this life for the next one. Watch me, I'ma be the best. I am what I am.
Man, that's just an incredible, incredible life story. Steve Shull is the man. I mean, you got to just have respect for someone who's just walks the walk and talks the talk. So you can always find Steve Shull. His website is performancecoaching.com, or you can find him on Instagram at smscoach1. You can find me anytime at DannyBrownLA.com or at DannyBrownLA on Instagram. Thank you for tuning in wherever you like to consume your podcasts. We are there. We're also on video on YouTube. We have so many cool guests coming on soon. James Ferrier, ex-dealer, ex-NFL superstar coming up. John Orlando, comedian and co-host of the Action Junkies and Vegas Junkies. And just so many really fun, interesting guests. So please tune in, leave comments, tell us what you're thinking, and looking forward to connecting with you guys soon. Take care.
In this life for the next one. Watch me, I'ma be the best.